The year's 1983 and you're visiting your favorite pizza arcade chain, Showbiz Pizza Place. You're excited to be reunited with all your favorite animatronic characters such as Billy Bob, Looney Bird, the Rock-afire explosion, and who the fuck? Welcome back to another episode of Sully Info Dumps about animatronics for an hour. If you haven't already seen my previous video on concept unification, watching it will make this whole thing a little bit easier to understand. But to go over the basics, Showbiz Pizza Place was a rival pizza chain to Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater in the early to mid 1980s. While you could find familiar faces such as Chuck E. Cheese, Helen Henny, and Jasper T. Jowls over at Pizza Time Theater, Showbiz Pizza Place had something much more exciting. The Rock-afire Explosion, the world's most advanced animatronic band appearing across 3 stages at Showbiz Pizza Place locations across the country. The band consisted of Rolf DeWolf and Earl Schmerl on stage right, Duke LaRue, Fats Geronimo, Beach Bear, and Mitzi Mozzarella on center stage, plus Looney Bird and Showbiz Pizza's own mascot Billy Bob Broccoli on stage left. All of these characters were created by inventor Aaron Fechter and his company Creative Engineering, who were co-founders of Showbiz Pizza Place, and they produced hundreds of units of these shows for over 200 Showbiz Pizza locations across the United States. Now, the Rock-afire Explosion was well regarded, it was beloved by kids and adults alike, and has garnered a cult following that has lasted to this day, nearly 40 years after they were removed from restaurants. And while the show itself wasn't becoming stale, Showbiz and Creative Engineering were always looking for ways to push the envelope in terms of their animatronic characters, and to entice visitors to keep coming back. So in 1982, it was decided that for the first time, the Rock-afire Explosion would be adding a new member. Welcome to the Uncle Klunk Abomination.
He's the funniest robot science ever made.
Hello, you're on the air with Uncle Klunk. Oh, I get it. You're doing your impression of a telephone ringing. What are you, some kind of nut? I'd say you were more some kind of fruit, actually. I'm beautiful, but you still have appeal.
The amazing Uncle Klunk, only at Showbiz.
Guess I'm too smart for the house.
During this time period where Showbiz Pizza Place was actively investing into R&D with Creative Engineering and wasn't hemorrhaging money, there were tons of ideas floating around of what kinds of animatronic characters they could bring to their restaurant chain in limited releases. One character that never made it into production was the animatronic likeness of Paul McCartney, who would then join the Rock-afire Explosion on stage. Because the Beatles are a notoriously cheap property to license at the height of Beatlemania, right? There are some photos floating around of the production of the Paul McCartney animatronic, including an early face sculpt for the character, which I think comfortably falls into the uncanny valley. But like I mentioned, Showbiz Pizza never opted to go forward with this character in any of their restaurants, and the singular Paul McCartney animatronic owned by Creative Engineering was eventually sold to the US military as Private Paul, where he, and I quote, would dance to Michael Jackson's Bad for hours non-stop in a gas chamber to test for leaks in new uniforms. Welcome to the early 2000s, everyone. So while Private Paul never made his way into Showbiz Pizza restaurants, Creative Engineering's next creation did. And that creation was Uncle Klunk. And hey, speaking of uncles, I wanted to take a second to thank the sponsor of this video, MyHeritage. It is the start of a new year, and what better time to find out more about your family lineage.
And at an incredibly low price of just $25 with code SULLY25.
Their process is incredibly simple. When I received my kit, I was able to take my DNA swab in just a few minutes and send it back out for testing the very same day. And I'm happy to report the results are in. So now it's time to find out if Sully is part animatronic. Oh, the music is intense. This is worth the price of admission right here. So I'm 40.9% Irish. That is very cool. 16,000 distant relatives. My goodness. Look at that, we're talking about Uncle Klunk and they found my uncle. My ancient origins are European farmer, which means my ancestors would be very disappointed in what I'm doing with my career. And you can learn more about yourself by clicking the link in the description, scanning the QR code on the screen, or by using code SULLY25, where you can buy a bundle that will include a DNA test kit, a 30-day free trial to MyHeritage, access to their ancient origin feature, free shipping, and more, all for just $25. You genuinely cannot beat the value of MyHeritage, and rest assured, MyHeritage will never sell or license your genetic data. So click that link in the description, scan the QR code, or use code SULLY25 to get your very own MyHeritage bundle. All right, so back on topic. Who the heck is Uncle Klunk? A lovable oaf of a television personality hosting the eponymous Uncle Klunk Abomination. And at the time of his development, this was the most advanced animatronic character that creative engineering had ever produced. On average, a single Rock-afire explosion character has around 17 movements. This would include motions like turning their head left and right, raising their arms, or leaning forward or backward. So at the time, the animatronic character that had the most movements was Rolf and Earl, with a total of 22 individual movements. But Uncle Klunk was coming in at a whopping 27 movements. That is the most movements implemented in a character to appear at a Showbiz Pizza restaurant ever, and nearly tying with modern-day Chuck E. Cheese's Studio C-Bot. Now, this was creative engineering's first attempt at a human character to perform alongside the Rock-afire explosion, and so they wanted to make him as fluid and realistic as possible, even with the limited technology that was readily available in 1982. And the result was this animatronic who stayed seated in a swiveling chair with his left leg crossed over his right. He had minimal movements in his lower half with a foot movement and the ability to turn his chair from side to side, but where the true ingenuity comes into play is in his upper half. You see, Uncle Klunk wasn't just advanced because he had a bunch of random movements. He had the ability to reliably pick up objects off of his side table. The two objects the character utilized in these early show tapes was a rotary telephone as well as a banana. Now, the way Klunk was able to achieve this amazing feat of seemingly picking up objects on his own was to be programmed in a very specific sequence. First, Uncle Klunk leans back in his chair, then his left arm will swing out with his wrist positioned upward, and once at the desired position, his wrist would move down, and his thumb would be triggered to move in and clasp onto the object. To pick up the banana, there was a secondary cylinder that swung his arm out even further to reach into the position to grab the banana, but the rest of the sequence was largely the same. And the installation manual was very clear that you should not, in any circumstances, turn off the calibration tapes while Klunk is in the process of picking up or putting down an object unless you want him to destroy everything in sight.
Now, to avoid damaging Klunk's arm and hand, don't stop the videotape unless Klunk is leaning forward and his arm is away from the table. And be sure to remember to stop the videotape player only when Klunk is in a static position during the cycle.
So using these techniques, Klunk was able to seamlessly pick up and put down objects just like a real human actor would. And now I understand in the year of our Lord 2026, a robot picking up a fake telephone does not sound that crazy, but in 1982, it was a huge advancement and one that creative engineering hoped to be the beginning of their second generation characters. In terms of actual performances, Uncle Klunk was originally voiced by longtime creative engineering collaborator Jeff Howell, who despite being deeply involved with the Rock-afire explosion, never voiced a character aside from a few uncredited voice lines. Now, the version of Uncle Klunk that most people are familiar with has a very over-the-top, Goofy-esque voice and a cartoonish personality. But the Jeff Howell version of Uncle Klunk actually came from an initial demo sent to Showbiz Pizza that they promptly rejected. And why on earth would they reject an entire show tape? We'll get to that in a minute. Now, in this initial demo, Klunk's voice is a lot more similar to Jeff Howell's speaking voice with a deeper, more southern twang to it. And just in general, the character carried himself as more of a radio disc jockey of the era rather than becoming such a caricature. And this first show tape was not what Showbiz Pizza was looking for to introduce their new animatronic character. One of the first things Uncle Klunk does in this show tape is talk to children about drug use.
There's a new problem going around our country, and we need to warn you about it seriously. If any of your friends ask you to go behind the building or back in the woods and smoke some Crayolas, don't do it. Listen, it's very bad for you. If you don't smoke Crayola. How many of you kids out there smoke Crayolas? Huh? No, raise your hand. Come on, we can tell. We can see the stains on your teeth. That's right. Yes, we know who you are. Kids, don't smoke Crayolas. If you want to smoke something, go steal some of your dad's old dried up socks. Don't smoke Crayolas.
Also, that terrifying echo effect was not added by me. That is in the original. If I was the sole person in a Showbiz Pizza place and an animatronic looked me dead in the eye and in complete silence played that sound clip, I would need therapy. He also told quite a bit of uplifting news that I'm sure all of the children were just thrilled to hear.
Ladies and gentlemen, today in Los Angeles, California, a man attempting to walk around the world drowned. Yesterday, a train derailed in the very eastern part of West Virginia, or the very western part of regular Virginia. In the accident, 10 people were killed, 5 seriously.
Overall, this Dembo show tape is a lot of fun. Do I understand why Showbiz Pizza maybe opted for a more family-friendly show tape? Yes, but I'm also very glad that this exists. Once the initial Uncle Klunk show tape was rejected, creative engineering was instructed by Showbiz to completely overhaul the character, giving him a completely new personality, which you heard earlier, hiring an outside writing team, and just overall completely restructuring the Uncle Klunk Abomination. And the result was this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, despite numerous complaints to the local police department, Showbiz Pizza Place fearlessly presents the Uncle Klunk Abomination!
Hold on, are we just gonna gloss over that? What did Uncle Klunk do that required police intervention? Anyway, this version of Uncle Klunk felt much more like an old stand-up comedian rather than the shock jock we got in the first show tape, with him constantly cracking groan-worthy jokes, followed by his catchphrase of either "you're beautiful" or "I'm beautiful," which you gotta love the self-love Uncle Klunk was showing back in 1982.
Thank you, I'm beautiful!
Although they were able to keep in some of the unintentionally unnerving aspects of the show tape, including this phone call.
Who is this?
Well, I'm Uncle Klunk!
Uncle Klunk?
Huh?
Is that spelled with a K? K-L-N-U-K? Uncle Klunk? Can you believe this?
I have no idea why that's disturbing to me, and maybe I'm alone in that. Overall, this Uncle Klunk is a much more watered-down version of the original character, and by watered down, I mean not at all like the original. In total, only one show tape was initially created for Uncle Klunk. The 49-minute show tape is split up amongst the 3 Rock-afire explosion stages, giving Uncle Klunk a total of 4 segments. Each skit followed roughly the same format, with Uncle Klunk being introduced, telling a few jokes, taking some phone calls, and then ultimately throwing it back over to the Rock-afire explosion. Callers ranged from the deranged laugher to Uncle Klunk's mother to his sidekick Murray D. Bird, who got a surprising amount of stage time considering he is the literal bird in a cuckoo clock. Now, to my knowledge, there doesn't seem to be any surviving footage of Murray D. Bird in action, aside from this half-a-second clip that was included in commercials promoting Uncle Klunk, but it appears that he was just a 2-movement character, with him able to open and close his mouth as well as pop in and out of the cuckoo clock. And this is further confirmed by a video from a collector who happened to get her hands on a Murray D. Bird mechanism. Now, I don't know if I've already mentioned this in the video, but because there wasn't room to build out additional stages in Showbiz Pizza restaurants, the decision was made to swap out Uncle Klunk for Rolf and Earl on stage right. There's a handy installation video for Uncle Klunk that details the process of retrofitting the Rock-afire explosion stage to fit this new character, and it is a lot more palatable than the concept unification tapes because you do not have a monotone voice instructing you to
destroy all of these props as they will not be used again.
The characters are simply removed from the stage and stored in a back room while they're not being used, something that I'm sure would not inspire a horror franchise nearly 3 decades later. And even though creative engineering and Showbiz were very optimistic for the reception of Uncle Klunk, only 50 of them were made, meaning not every Showbiz Pizza Place restaurant got one. Creative and Showbiz viewed Uncle Klunk as a traveling show, one that could do a residency at a few stores for a few months, and then be swapped out to new Showbiz Pizza restaurants, so every store could see him while still keeping it as a limited time event. Again, the whole idea of this was to increase revenue and drive people back into Showbiz Pizza Place, so surely they wouldn't want to miss the animatronic of the century, and things turned around for Showbiz Pizza. Right? Unfortunately, Uncle Klunk didn't quite live up to the expectations that were set by creative engineering and Showbiz Pizza. Revenue didn't increase as both companies had hoped, and Uncle Klunk's reviews were mixed, to say the least. Aaron Fechter is quoted in an interview with the Journal Herald at the time saying that Klunk, quote, hasn't set the world on fire as I hoped he could do, and partially attributed that fact to the specific locations that Klunk was chosen to be installed in. But Showbiz Pizza had invested a lot of money into this character, and they were not gonna settle for a single show tape before calling it quits. No, they were going to make this animatronic character work. Or at least they were gonna try their best. So you're a Showbiz Pizza executive and you're tasked with finding out what went wrong with the Uncle Klunk rollout. You take a long look at the animatronic sitting in front of you, and you finally realize, I know what the problem is. he isn't nearly country enough. Yes, Showbiz Pizza Place's first bandage for the Uncle Klunk situation was rebranding him as Country Klunk. Now, you might not see the difference at first, so let me point out, Uncle Klunk has big ears, a big nose, a tacky yellow plaid suit, and an iconic orange afro. But Country Klunk has big ears, a big nose, a tacky yellow plaid suit, and an iconic orange afro. But he also has a cowboy hat and a bolo tie. Problem solved. They also recast the role of Country Klunk once again, this time passing him off to performer Sean Fernandez. And unlike previous Uncle Klunk iterations, this character didn't have any skits throughout the Country Klunk show tape, instead performing 4 country songs, including the Ricky Skaggs medley, Exactly How I Feel, Much Too Young to Die, and I Would Change You If I Could. The Country Klunk show tape has some absolute bangers in it, and I think it's pretty well regarded by the hardcore fans, but it did not do much to patch the hole in the sinking ship that was Showbiz Pizza at the time. But you know who can fix anything? It's Santa! Yes, Uncle Klunk was retrofitted into Santa Claus, and all is right in the world. And for transparency's sake, I do want to point out that the Santa Claus retrofit did come before the Country Klunk retrofit, with Santa Claus debuting in winter of 1983, and Country Klunk not coming to the stage until about a year later in January of 1985. Much like the initial Uncle Klunk run, Santa Claus only graced our stages for a single Christmas-themed show tape that was used in stores both in 1983 and 1984. But in these show tapes, Santa Claus gets both skits and songs, and he does something that Uncle Klunk never did, which is actually interact with the other Rock-afire Explosion characters. He sang Jingle 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 from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Have a Holly Jolly Christmas, he read the audience a Christmas story, and much like Klunk, they were sure to show off his ability to pick up and hold a telephone by having him call back to the North Pole. There's very little documentation about Santa's presence in Showbiz Pizza restaurants and how he was received, but I can only imagine it was an improvement over Uncle Klunk. Santa Claus was a known quantity already and a character that kids would be really excited to see on stage, especially around Christmas time. So I think it's a shame that this stage didn't catch on more and is now only seen in a select few private collections. And then, as the story goes, shortly after the Country Klunk show tape, the 2 former pizza chain rivals, Showbiz Pizza Place and Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater, merged to become Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated. I do not have the time to go over all of that history again, so I highly suggest you go watch the other video about it. So as the company was restructuring and trying to find its footing in this new era, they realized they still had a lot of random Uncle Klunk animatronics sitting around their warehouse. And like I said, they spent a good amount of money on these animatronics, so I think the best thing they possibly could do is carefully preserve these animatronics so that future oh, good lord! Yes, let me introduce you to Showbiz Pizza's 3rd attempt to salvage the disaster that was the Uncle Klunk rollout, Orwell, a robot you control. Now, the purpose of this installation outside the main showroom was to spark the interest of kids who wanted to learn about the mechanics of the character and show them up close exactly how they work. And you know what? I'll just let Orwell himself explain it.
Hello, my name is Orwell. Those great folks at Showbiz have been telling me for years that I've got a split personality, so I finally decided to put it to work for me. By using the buttons on the control panel, you can be in charge of my movements.
You know, I'm all for introducing a new generation to the wonders of animatronics, and I think that on paper, Orwell is such a great concept. If they hadn't taken a beloved character and mutilated him before our very eyes.
You can control my movements by using the buttons on the control. From here on, I'm in your hands.
There's just something terrifying about an animatronic character that's seemingly sentient, but yet encourages passerbys to take control of his body, placing him in this weird liminal space between living and not. Maybe I'm just overthinking this. But you know what? Maybe the half Uncle Klunk, half Terminator approach isn't your style. Well, lucky for you, some other locations did away with the half-and-half cosmetics and just presented Orwell as a bare mechanism, which in my mind is a much less unsettling approach. And did they keep his same funny voice? No, they didn't. Instead, they did something much worse.
Hello, my name is Orwell. I'm here to obey your every command. I have been programmed so you can control my movements by pushing the buttons in front of you. I'm ready, if you are.
What is it with this animatronic and the terrifying echo chamber they throw his voice clips into? I thought I was on board, but now I'm scared and I want Two-Face back. Very few photos of Orwell exist online and zero footage of him in action has ever surfaced. You know what, I'll offer my same Yogi Bear cash prize to the first person that can send me non-released footage of Orwell in action. There's a distinct possibility someone watching this video has an old home movie that has footage of this character, so if you do, send me an email. So you must be thinking Showbiz Pizza was finally done bastardizing the corpse of Uncle Klunk after all these years. You'd be wrong! What do you get when you cross Uncle Klunk with Santa Claus? The correct answer is Uncle Pappy. Now, Uncle Pappy was introduced at the same time as Orwell in Showbiz Pizza restaurants, with corporate just throwing anything at the wall to see if it would stick. Spoiler alert! None of it did. But one of the ideas they threw out there was in the form of Uncle Pappy, who was weirdly placed smack dab in the middle of the arcade. Ah yes, who doesn't want to play some skee-ball while being watched over by an 8-foot monstrosity? And Uncle Pappy's shtick was weirdly limited in a way that leads me to believe that halfway through development, even Showbiz Pizza lost confidence in their own concept. All he did was give advice to kids in the form of songs that he sung a cappella, which I'm sure you could not hear over the cacophony of the arcade around him. Here's an example of some of Uncle Pappy's sage words of wisdom. That's it? That's your advice? We don't know what you do. We don't know who you are. The only 3 show audios that have ever surfaced of Uncle Pappy are him telling you to do as he does, look both ways before crossing the street, and to save your money. Well, gee whiz, thanks, Uncle Pappy. What would I do without that genius advice? I miss when he was telling kids to stop smoking Crayolas.
Don't do it.
But after the very short-lived installation of Uncle Pappy, only appearing in about 3 locations, Uncle Klunk was finally and unceremoniously ousted from his gig at Showbiz Pizza Place once and for all. Now, what happened to all of those Uncle Klunk characters? Who's to say? There are a few of them in the hands of private collectors these days, but nowhere near the number that we know once existed, so it's very likely that Uncle Klunk was used for parts or completely discarded, something that Showbiz and Chuck E. Cheese are no stranger to. And what legacy did Uncle Klunk leave behind? Is he remembered for being the funniest robot that science ever made? Surprisingly, I would argue the thing that Uncle Klunk is most well known for over 4 decades later is being the subject of a popular creepypasta called the Uncle Klunk Incident. I'll link to the full story below, but the general gist of the creepypasta is that the Uncle Klunk animatronic had an uncanny ability to predict when tragedy was about to strike the pizza place, be it shootings or kidnappings, and would then verbalize these predictions moments before disaster struck. Showbiz then recalled all of the Uncle Klunk animatronics, but one store was accidentally left out of this mandatory recall. So of course, this animatronic started reading the news and announcing the death of multiple people at Showbiz Pizza Place. Something that I must note, he kinda already did in his first show tape. Just seconds later, an entire semi-truck crashed through the restaurant, killing multiple people, yet leaving the animatronic unscathed. And thus, when you look up Uncle Klunk online, you will find that he has a kill count of 2. I know it's just a creepypasta, but I am now considering it canon that Uncle Klunk is responsible for the death of multiple innocent civilians. If only they would have taken his advice.
Don't smoke Crayolas.
So there you have it, a complete history of Uncle Klunk, Country Klunk, Santa Claus, Orwell, and Uncle Pappy, the most retrofitted animatronic character in Showbiz Pizza history. This animatronic took on so many different forms over his very short tenure at Showbiz Pizza Place, but I think I can say that without a doubt, all of them were abominations. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and thanks again to MyHeritage for making this video possible. You can secure your very own DNA kit by using the link in the description, scanning the QR code on the screen, or using code Sully25. Additionally, if you want more Uncle Klunk content, I have uploaded an entire reaction to some of the Uncle Klunk show tapes that I did earlier on in the development of this video. Memberships start at just 99 cents, and they genuinely help support this channel as it is a one-man operation, and I plan to keep it that way. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and as always, be kind to one another, stay safe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.